The thing is, companies love ideas and bosses love ideas, but sometimes the way that the corporate structure is set up, it's not very accommodating to new
Hmm.
ideas. It can be rigorous. So then you just have to figure out, well, how do I channel my new ideas into the company? So whatever those methods of influencing are, but those would be the ways that you get your ideas across, and it's essential. It's important for you and your career growth, and it's important for the company.
So, are you tired of being the person who needs direction, or are you tired of giving your team direction? Well, if this is the case for you, then this is your episode. Coming up, you'll discover the key to becoming a self starter at work and helping others do the same. Self starters take action in their workday and in their career, and this leads to accelerated growth and improvement, something that we all need to be thinking about. Enter Melanie Huet, who's the Chief Commercial Officer over at Serta Simmons Bedding. And yes, it's that Serta Simmons. It's the largest manufacturer and distributor of bedding in North America. Melanie is currently leading a full business transformation of this 150-year leader into a digital powerhouse. And by the way, Melanie has worked for other blue chip companies like Unilever, Kraft Heinz, and Kimberly-Clark. And in her background, she's managed brands that you and I know well, like Pull Ups, Capri Sun, Kool-Aid, Hellman's, and Lipton Tea. Now let's dive in. What do you say to people who are like, look, there's just too much red tape for me to start on a new idea or something along those lines, or it's not going to go anywhere? What?
I would say that's an excuse. and
Okay, yeah.
and
Uh,
and that if we get back to know the game you're playing, if your game requires all those meetings, and I've worked it a lot in those environments. I mean, that's most of my past.
yeah.
Then
Well,
influence through the channels. So the thing is, companies love ideas and bosses love ideas, but sometimes the way that the corporate structure is set up, it's not very accommodating to new
mhm.
ideas. It can be rigorous. So then you just have to figure out, well, how do I channel my new ideas into the company? So is that I create a proposal and I go through this very formal process? Maybe.
Mhm.
Is it I have a good relationship with someone higher up in the organization and I, whisper it to them over lunch, coffee, or dinner?
Mhm.
Whatever those methods of influencing are, but those would be the ways that you get your ideas across, and it's essential. It's important for you and your
Mhm.
career growth, and it's important for the company. What are some skills that are important to rise? Like, a lot of people want to
Mhm.
know about getting promoted, and
Yes.
first question to yourself would be, do you really want to get promoted? So I think everybody says they want a promotion, but do you know what that next level job looks like? So my husband will often, he's an IT project manager, and he often looks at me and says, I would never want your job. But it's on 24/7.
Hmm.
And I do get compensated for that, but it's also a life choice, right? It's very demanding. And so,
Hmm.
do you want it? And then, if you do want it, understand what it takes to get that job. And one thing I think people underestimate is the importance of really clear, concise communication.
Hmm.
And so that's something that I'm still working on. I wish I could
Mhm.
be the best in the world at it. And I worked for a CMO who was fabulous. Clive Sirkin could just tell you so much in 9 words. And I'm like, how did you do that? And I think that's something everyone should strive for.
What was it like having an executive coach? And are you a believer that this is something that people should be thinking about for themselves?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's humbling. And it's wonderful. So I
Mhm.
had my first coach when I became a director at Kimberly Clark, and she really helped me understand a few things that weren't going very well, but more importantly, how to
Hmm.
overcome those. And
Okay.
what's interesting is her name's Jane. Since then, I've worked with another executive coach, and now on my own, I went back to Jane, and I pay for her personally because she's been such a value to me.
Yeah, that is remarkable. And I've had an executive coach for years. I'm a believer in it, and so much so I am an executive coach now. That's something that I'm really passionate about. And I definitely think I'm curious what your thought is. So now, like the company making that investment in you versus you taking that on and making that investment yourself. How is it? How has it changed from when you're the one making the investment there?
Well, it makes it count even more when you're paying for it personally out of pocket. It's
Yeah, yeah. You're
it's
more
a little bit
invested, literally. Yeah.
yes. But I think it also can create a safer space. And the reason the coaching worked for me and the reason I went back to Jane is I did trust her, and it was a very safe environment for me.
Mhm.
And letting yourself be vulnerable and truly hearing the feedback is really the only way you're going to grow. So I lived in New Jersey. I was working at Unilever,
Mhm.
took the job at Kimberly-Clark in Wisconsin to get closer to home. My husband and I are from Minnesota. So I took this job, expected the husband to move with me. We couldn't sell our house, so therefore no husband. And I moved with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And that was really challenging
Holy
because
smokes.
they were
Yeah.
really small. And I was trying to ramp up this new job while my husband tried to ramp down our life in New Jersey. And then, the culture was a shock. The East Coast culture is very different than the Midwest culture. And I had been out East so long, I had gotten so used to it that when I came into the Midwest, which I had lived previously, they said I was too direct and I was abrasive. And this is funny because if you
Huh.
know me, people would not say those things about me. And so I was a
You're bringing
little,
a little New York, New Jersey direct communication. I used to live in
yeah,
Manhattan. I totally know what you mean.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so lots of things at the start weren't going well. I didn't
Mhm.
really understand the culture. Had a couple missteps there. Was having a hard time engaging because of my personal life, and so just off to a really bumpy start, which led to within, I'll call it like 10 weeks of employment, they're like, "Hey, it's not going too well," and I'm like, "Wow, that was a fast turnaround of negative feedback." And so what I learned from that was all sorts of things. So I think it
Hmm.
really was a great experience for me, but it probably took me a year to recover from that 10 weeks of, not good performance, at least a year. And what I learned was I should have paid more attention again walking in to what the culture was and what was happening and
Hmm.
adjusted to it faster. I was a little nervous that my team follow me, and so then I think I was a little too rigid in the beginning about my leadership style, and I needed to be a little bit more accommodating. And I think I could have done a better job with my personal life because I really didn't prepare very well there either. So there were lots of pieces that started to come together that helped me later in life. And he
Hmm.
would reflect on what went well that week, but more importantly, he would reflect on what didn't I do well this week and how am I going to adjust. And that nugget from that book really stuck with me. And what I realized is
Hmm.
that, most of your success and more importantly, most of your failure is really owned by you and driven by you. Yes, there's circumstances, but you need to own it. And
Yeah.
so the
Hmm.
reflection piece has helped me a lot because then I can sit and think back about, okay, I could blame a lot of reasons, things about why I didn't do well when I first started my new job, or I could think about it differently. I could reflect and
Hmm.
say, how could I have created a better situation for myself? There were certain things under my control that I could have done differently.
So for the listeners, do you have is it like a scheduled time that you do that, or is it just every once in a while, or how do you approach reflection?
I try to leave my calendar free Fridays 3 to 5. It doesn't always work, but I try at the end of
Okay.
the week to do
Hmm.
that. And then often what happens is it ends up being more like Saturday, and I'll try to just sit and think. Sometimes if
Hmm.
I'm at the gym, I can also use that time.